you. My name's Kevin Watson. I'm the International Accreditation and Business Development Manager for Smara Training. My previous experience here in Oman, I started with BP, doing their technician development program for the Kazan. I then had 3 years working for Opal, doing standards development and skills development. And now I'm very happy to be working with Smara to continue my work. Today I'm actually going back to my core discipline. I'm an engineer by trade, and I've spent most of my career working in the oil and gas industry as a maintainer, working on oil rigs, both in the North Sea, in Azerbaijan, and then obviously working here in Oman to get the Kazan project started. So I'm going to be talking today about preventative maintenance as a mechanism for loss prevention. It's actually very nice that I've continued on from my very good friend Abdullah, because I think he set the tone for my talk today. So what do we mean by loss prevention? Loss prevention is a means to measure and to prevent losses of life, health, property, and productivity. But really what we're looking at is performance. We want to make sure that our plants, our processes, our companies are performing as high as they can. So to do that, we need to be looking at loss prevention. And really at the core of every company, there should be a good strategy to focus on loss prevention. And again, following on from Mr. Abdullah's talk, it's very important that there are good processes and practices in place for loss reduction, but we must look at prevention. Prevention should always be our primary thing. We don't ever want to be trying to pick up the pieces after an incident. It's all very well having good incident investigation, but really we want to stop these things happening before we get to that point. Continuous improvement forms a very big part of that. The technology is evolving at an exponential rate. Certainly from when I look back to my early career to where we are today, the techniques that we can use to identify failures so much earlier, we need to embrace these. We need to get them into our strategy, making sure we're continually looking for these new techniques to prevent losses happening. So to go back in time a little bit here, and again, it was very interesting that we were talking about Toyota earlier, because the Japanese Institute of Plant Maintenance back in the 1970s, they came up with this concept of total productive maintenance. And as part of this process of coming up with total productive maintenance, they identified the big six. These are the big six loss areas that they identified. Now, this is pretty much focusing on a manufacturing plant, but these losses can also apply to an operational plant. It can really apply to anything. These big six were divided into three areas: availability losses, performance losses, and quality losses. So by availability losses, we're looking at things like equipment failure, unplanned downtime, breakdowns. We're also looking at things like startup and adjustment and planned downtime. Startup and adjustment is obviously when we're making changes to the plant. Are we doing it efficiently and effectively? Idling and small stops. Now this is when we're actually operating our plant outside of its operating envelope. And this could be for a number of different reasons, but this is also identified as a loss area. Reduction in speed. Now, this again is looking very specifically at a manufacturing plant, but if we apply the same kind of thought process to our operations plant, what we're looking at is things when filters start to block up, when the plant again is being poorly maintained and its general performance is dropping off the ideal optimum curve. Process defects and reworks. This is very important when we're looking at things like management of change. If we're going to make changes, let's make sure we engineer them properly before we implement them to reduce the amount of reworks that have to be done afterwards. And then finally, with startup losses. Now, every time we start our plant up, there are losses. It takes a while to get the plant up to speed. So really, we want to reduce the number of startups that we have throughout the year. So preventative maintenance, the big why. Why do we do preventative maintenance? And why is preventative maintenance so important to us? Now, I think we all know that we need to maintain our plant. We need to maintain it so that we keep operational reliability and efficiency, that we have good asset integrity and safety. But what I'm really talking about at the why is, do the people, the maintainers, understand why they're doing what they're doing? Now, I'd like to tell you a little story from my past. Back in the 1990s, I was working in the North Sea. The price of oil then was around about $15 a barrel. It was a tough time for industry. And the way we survived, or way the company survived, was to really bring the maintainers into the operational team. So we became operators as well as maintainers. Now, for me, this was a step change in the way I saw the job that I was doing. I'd already been a maintainer for maybe 8 or 9 years. I was fairly young. But suddenly I was shown why I was doing what I was doing. The link between the activities I was doing as a maintainer and then the operational efficiency of the plant. And for me, it really opened my eyes to the importance of focusing the maintenance activities we did in the mind of performance. The performance of the plant, maintaining it, making sure that it's always reliable, that it's always available. And really, this is a key area that we still need to be focusing on today. As the oil price has gone up, we've gone away from maintainers being operators, and there's a danger that now these maintainers are not understanding the reasons why we're maintaining. So just to give a very simple example of the reasons why preventative maintenance is so important. Where do the losses actually come from? This is actually an example, a very simple example of a roller bearing. Okay, it was identified during a study that the primary losses for, or the losses for a bearing failure fall into 3 main areas. Engineering design, and this would be things like poor material selection or poor design. Material defects. Again, this is the kind of slightly more uncontrolled areas, unless you've got good quality processes. And 80% of it was related to maintenance. When you're actually using the bearing, poor maintenance leads to poor performance. So how do we achieve the goal that we're looking for, which is to link loss prevention with preventative maintenance? Well, yes, we need to have good preventative maintenance systems and processes in place. Most importantly is we've got good leadership. Our leaders need to be encouraging maintainers to work with their operational teams to understand the reasons why we're doing the maintenance tasks that we're doing. And finally, and the one that's most close to my heart, is obviously skills and competency. We need to make sure that our workforce, our maintainers, have the correct skills, the correct competencies, and the correct motivation to focus their maintenance activities in the realm of loss prevention. So quickly to summarize, loss prevention and maintenance go hand in hand. We need to make sure that maintainers are working with the management and the overall strategies to do with loss prevention to increase the performance of our facilities and our plants. So with that, I will close my conversation for today, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you.